Is Formula 2 basically just a sham at this point? And is Liam Lawson's seat at Red Bull already in a little bit of trouble? Well, according to Helmut Marko, that might be the case. Helmut Marko, by the way, is somebody whose name I expect we're going to be mentioning a lot on this channel as we move forward. But let's jump in to what he's actually said recently. So the first statement that he made was basically talking about Liam Lawson's experience when he was in Formula 2. And effectively, he was saying that all's not as it seems in Formula 2 and that there are some people being favoured versus not being favoured. Now, for many of you, this will not be a massive surprise, considering Formula 2 is kind of like expected to be somewhat akin to like a spec series. There's some massive differences in teams and engines. So to quote what he said this: in Formula 2, there are sometimes big differences between the engines. His teammate was the American, Logan Sargent, who received a new engine after it was clear that he was headed to F1. After that, he was 3 to 5 tenths quicker on the straights. Knowing that there was nothing he could do about this, he didn't give up. He continued to fight. He only placed third in the championship, but others would have despaired and told themselves that they did not have a shot with that engine. Now, the subject of this interview is obviously mostly about Liam Lawson, but this accusation to F2 I think is pretty important. The reputation of F2 at the minute is kind of, well, let's just be honest, it's a little bit in the gutter, right? There are drivers who are winning F2 who are nowhere near getting an F1 seat because it's obvious that the best drivers aren't necessarily getting the best results, and that's not because of the drivers, it's because of the car, the team, the engines. Now, there's a big topic here about whether or not this is even a viable structure going forward in terms of like finding the best talent. And really, I think like in recent months and probably years actually, to be honest, it's opened up a debate whether or not F2 and the actual feeder series are really doing the job that they were intended to do. People are kind of able to buy their way through by getting into the best teams with the best support and then probably getting the best engines. And then they're not making it into F1 because at the pinnacle of F1, it's actually mostly about skill. And I say mostly because obviously there are some drivers who make it through not by being the most talented, but by being relatively talented and very, very rich or offering sponsorships and stuff like that. I can't lie, I'm not really a big watcher of F3 and F2. Like, I sometimes watch the highlights on YouTube. For a layman like myself, it's kind of been hard to work out who I should be rooting for. Who is the best driver? Is it just because they're in the best teams? Do they just have the best engines? You know, for me, it's been kind of difficult to actually figure that out. So I'm not really a big watcher, but I know that F2 is not doing a great job with its feeding its talent into F1. So is this accusation here about the engine true? Well, you would expect Helmut Marko to not be holding back his punches here. If he's saying this, then he probably believes it, right? Otherwise, why would he be giving Liam Lawson a shot in the Red Bull seat at this very moment? But it's crazy to think, even if this is exaggerated a little bit, that there might be an element of truth in this. In theory, in Formula 2, all the engines are supposed to be the same. But if you can literally just be giving it a new engine at the discretion of the FIA or whoever's actually determining who gets the engines, I'm not 100% sure who that is, by the way, let me know in the comments. But if you can just get a new engine and be faster, that's obviously nonsense, right? In theory, we want F2 to be a way of deciding who are the better drivers and who should get promoted to F1. Now, there has been talk recently, and I don't know if there's any update on this at the moment, about actually having like a race at the end of the season with a lot of the F2 drivers basically, but with the actual Formula 1 cars of the year that just ended. Now, that was getting some support, and I've got to say I would probably put my support behind that. I don't really know how you force the F1 teams to run that, but you could kind of say it's instead of the test, so maybe they actually would, you know, want to do that and want to participate. But then I kind of realized that when I was saying that then, actually, if you had the F2 drivers in the F1 cars, you're basically in the same situation where the cars aren't even because they're not balanced, are they, in F1? But what it would allow the teams to do is to actually get a good look at the comparisons against all of their other drivers in the same series. Like, you already know that, you know, Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, their speeds, and Red Bull's their speeds. You already know how fast they're expected to go. So seeing younger talent try that would probably give you a good indication whether or not they're going to be up to snuff, right? So I'm in favor of that idea. Hopefully we see that, because I would definitely watch that. Now, speaking about Liam Lawson, I would be worried for my seat literally already. Yes, Marko's talking about his mental strength here when it was in F2, and he's hopeful that when he goes against Max, he'll not be too disheartened by, you know, probably losing out. I mean, losing out to a 4-time world champion, not going to be the craziest thing to happen. But Marko has given Liam a little bit of a warning straight away. He should be within 3/10 of Max in both qualifying and in the race. That should be enough to to get points for the Constructor Championship. He should also steadily increase his performance if possible. That's kind of the benchmark that they've set before, actually. I think they've said that in the past with the Albon and Gasly and stuff like that. And I don't think Marko's here expecting 3/10 at every single track. Obviously, a longer track is going to be a bigger gap and a shorter track a smaller gap. It's got to have to be within reasonable kind of like disparity, right? And I think it makes sense to put an expectation upon Liam to him and to the team and say, this is what we're expecting from you. I'm not really sure it's always the best idea to share this information because people are going to be saying the same thing I'm saying now. Like, okay, Liam, watch out, your seat might be at risk. All it will take is a couple of bad performances where you don't actually achieve this metric and maybe you're going to be on the chopping block. I mean, to be fair, maybe it's a case of where if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. If you're going to get thrown into the deep end and be against Max Verstappen and you're going to be racing in F1, it's kind of too late to be like, oh, I'm not really sure I'm ready. You're there, you're in the hot seat, get cracking on, I guess. For me, I'd be bricking it. But that's why, you know, I would be a terrible driver if they ever put me in a car. I mean, I'm not even that good on the road. The person I actually feel probably the sorriest for, though, at the minute is actually Yuki Sonoda. He kind of beat everybody that they put against him, and yet he didn't end up with the Red Bull seat. Marko actually, at one interview, which I don't have to hand, said it was basically because of his mental outburst, right? He was a little bit immature, and we kind of heard that on the radio. He's kind of prone to an odd blow up every now and then. Hopefully, Yuki will kind of like mature as a personality. It sounds a bit weird that, right? Because as a driver, he's fast, but he just kind of blows up in kind of what appears to be a little bit of like an immature way. If he can get that solved, and maybe Liam ends up getting replaced because he's not within 3/10, maybe Yuki will actually get the shot. Marko, though, has possibly identified a replacement already. There is a driver by the name of Arvid Lindblad. He's 17-year-old. He's got, you know, he had a British mum and a Swedish dad. And Marko said he is pure speed. So I think, as ever with Red Bull, things are about to get very spicy. Well, depending on who Liam does. A little bit of faltering and things could get shaken up yet again mid-season because, you know, we've seen that before. I didn't even mention Isaac Hadjar. We'll have to wait and see how he performs in that RB seat next to Yuki. Have they actually announced their team name yet? They keep changing it every year. RB, such stupid naming. I mean, go back to Toro Rosso or something. Honestly, I enjoyed it. Even AlphaTauri. Yeah, come on, please. But whatever you think about these issues, it's definitely going to be a very interesting season when we get into the 2025 season. And if you want to follow along with news and updates, then that's what I'm going to be doing on this channel. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe. Have a beautiful day. Goodbye.